It's been a while since we went old school, but this fighter, Julio Cesar Chavez, is very useful to bring up in the modern age. We're going to talk about some intelligent pressure, particularly around cutting off the ring. Let's go. So he comes out the gate, and he's trying to corner Roger Mayweather. And what he's going to do, he's going to cut off an exit by taking a deep step with that left, and then using his body as kind of a blockade as a potential threat to that exit. And so when he uses his body to cut off the left, Roger's going to head right. And so when he heads right, now Roger's like, okay, I got him in a bad position and I can circle back out. But really, he's cutting off exits to really send him in one particular direction. And now that he's got him going in the other direction, he can time him. And that's what he tries to do with that left hook. And it just barely misses Roger. And it's not just about footwork. Footwork is something we're going to talk a lot more about. But it's also about feinting. And in this case, a full body feint, where he does his head, his shoulders, his hands, and his foot all together, or they threaten that exit. So it's really a game of constantly closing possible doors. You want to go this way, I close that door. You want to go that way, I close that door. And so with this, he used his body to feint and say, I'm going to cut that off. And so Roger instantly responds and goes away from that position. There's also a range game. So after he got hit with the jab, he was already probably pretty keenly aware of the range, but now he definitely has a better idea of the range. And that means when he's cutting off, he can find, so like, I'll give you an example. Let's say Roger moves back 8 inches. Julio Cesar Chavez is going to be more accurate when he closes in 8 inches, right? And so now he's more comfortable with the position he's in, and Roger's more cornered against the ropes. So he has an opportunity. He level changes right overhand over the shoulder of Roger, who is also circling right. Being great at cutting off the ring does mean taking some risk, but that's true with just about any offensive skill set. And also, risk is necessary in greatness in all aspects of boxing. What he does, lead foot, big step, boom, cut off that exit. And again, his full body leaning in, threatening that position. And what does Roger do? Jump the other way. But pay attention, it's not just the lead foot that takes that step. That right foot comes around too, and so now he's in a position to also threaten that other side. And so now he's in a position to go to the right if he needs to. So he's kind of squaring up and giving himself multiple options to close multiple doors all at once. And feints aren't just important for closing doors, they're also important for opening offensive doors. So he's going to do similar to what he did earlier. He's going to take a step and kind of like lean in. Roger's not going to show much of a reaction. He's just going to keep circling right. Okay, now I know that you're not going to show much reaction to that lean in and you're going to keep circling right. What's he going to do? He's going to cut him off and throw that right overhand again. So if you know they're going to go through a certain door, you can catch them at that exit or at that entry, whatever. A couple important distinctions. Chavez's style of cutting off the ring is very successful, and there are tools that can be taken away from his style. This video isn't to say that this is the only way to cut off the ring. It's just showing an example of a great way to cut off the ring. Second distinction, these early rounds are often, it's way harder to cut off the ring on your opponent because their legs are the freshest. They can react better, change directions, all of that. But hopefully what you're seeing is that Chavez isn't doing too much to expend energy. And in fact, he's doing very little to make his opponent spend a lot. So he's not losing that much stamina while his opponent has to keep moving and do all of this, and then they slow down, because pressure fighting is a war of attrition, true chess. It's not about the opening, it's about the pieces on the board in the end game. Head movement to avoid the jab, but as he's moving his head, what's that right foot doing? It's coming around. It's coming around. He takes that step, and then what's the left foot doing? It's coming around. And he's moving his head all at the same time to avoid any other possible counter punches upon his entry. Left foot coming around, and then he's punching at the same time. When he punches, what's Roger do? Roger has to stop and react. Now that Roger has stopped and reacted, he finds himself in a bad position, and Julio Cesar Chavez finds himself in a great position because he's been constantly shifting and moving his feet to constantly cut off that angle. So now that right leg has come around again, and now where are they? Roger is back against the ropes, and Julio Cesar Chavez is square face to face with Roger, which is the perfect position. So it's all about all of those pieces not just working, but working together and working in unison or with timing. Okay, last video I talked about the importance of cutting off not just entries but also exits. There are 3 windows. The first is when both fighters are entering in the range. This is what most people think of when they think of cutting off the ring. One fighter circling away and the other fighter trying to enter into range to catch them. The second is in an exchange where both fighters are in range and throwing at each other. And then the third is when both or either fighter is exiting in range and the exchange has ceased. In the latter window, defense can often be forgotten in favor of just getting out of the exchange. That's why a lot of fighters are bad exiting in exchange. The same way you have to find openings for entries into range, you can take advantage of openings when your opponent is attempting to exit range. But in order to even find those openings, you have to be in a position to take advantage of them. So after Roger throws his left, Julio Cesar Chavez is closing the distance like how he's been doing. Look at his feet, right foot gonna come around. And so now he's in a position where he's way closer to Roger than how he would have been if he would have just stayed stationary. His feet are constantly adjusting. That's the range game. And so now that that right foot is closer, he's technically in southpaw, but it doesn't really matter because he kind of fights square. So that left can come around and he can catch Roger, who probably wasn't expecting Julio to be that close to him. But Julio's feet were constantly adjusting to find the proper range. And then the final thing, a very important thing that I cannot stress enough about pressure fighting, is the intelligence required to be dynamic enough to successfully be an elite pressure fighter. Meaning that it's not just about coming forward, and you see him coming forward like how he's been doing and leaning in, but then what does he do? He leans back out of the way of the left foot and then he jumps back just a little bit. And now with that jump, he has space to react and he has space to make some defensive decisions, like how he catches that jab. He's giving himself room to breathe and room to think. So it's also about controlling range and controlling the fight, which sometimes means jumping back. And now that you're out of range, you can catch a jab, get out of the way of a left hook, and then dynamic, do different stuff with your entries and all of that. So yeah, I think we'll keep it like that for right now, fight scientists, and I will talk to y'all later. Immortality Serum out.